We're still live on Plus TV Africa as Nigeria decides. We start off the show talking about the 9th Senate. Some senators, like Senator Bukola Saraki, will not be returning, but that's not the conversation today, by the way. Today we'll be looking at senators who are returning and just getting in, some who include former governors.
And most importantly, we'll also be looking at those who have corruption charges against them, pending issues that we still have to address. Joining us to discuss this and more, we have Emmanuel Agunze, the founder of Makoko Dream. Good evening, Emmanuel.
Good evening.
And we also have Obinna Igwebike, management consultant. I hope I got your name right.
Very right.
Good evening.
Thanks.
Now, gentlemen, let's first of all talk about how the elections went, and then these individuals. And now coming back to the Senate, we have the likes of Orji Kalu, who was the former governor of Abia State, still has EFCC actually was prosecuting him for alleged stealing of Abia State funds, and is now coming back and is supposed to represent the state one more time. So we also have Ifeanyi Ubah and Ike Ekweremadu. But there is a little bit of a twist when we are looking at this whole set. We look at the like of Dino Melaye. It does not necessarily have to deal with financial corruption, but this time he has been said, well, his team or somebody within his team shot dead an officer at Mokba, and then it was also alleged that he was prosecuted for having to bring in arms or fuel and that as well. So what do you make of these senators who have actually won seats again in the Senate and are back to serve?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because when you see the way these people conduct themselves when they're on trial, so some come with stretchers, they come with a full hospital facility for their trials, and then the question I ask is, where is the energy they have to run elections? Because I mean, if you can come and say, look, I'm too weak to stand trial, then you should also be very weak to stand for elections. I mean, Orji Kalu, that case has been on for close to 12 years. I mean, that was a case that was instituted in 2007, even before he left office. And I think it's also a very strong indictment on the legal system we have in this country. I mean, you can't be having a case like that for 12 years. Something has to give. You either let the guy go, or you actually, give a judgment. And that's one of the reasons these people are taking advantage of the system, because the case will not end.
But court processes can last as long as it wants to. I mean, we have seen cases even outside this country drag on for so long, and then at the end of the day, you get an indictment or somebody goes to court or they're finally free. But I mean, it's a process.
I agree. I mean, and in law, they say, it's better to err on the side of caution because you don't want to unnecessarily punish someone. But I think some of these cases have just taken too long. And I think these are just technical arguments that the defense lawyers just keep dragging these cases. Let us put an end to some of these trials and have judgments on them.
Emmanuel, quickly, do you think this culture of, where we have impunity and there are certain individuals that cannot be touched, do you think this is the trend and these individuals coming to serve are the untouchables, if we may use that word?
Unfortunately, that's the trend, and I think the thing that we need to do is to strengthen our judicial system. We need to trust it again. And if we're going to trust it again, we need to make it more transparent, more effective. I remember very well when I heard about the case of Dino Melaye, and I was like, okay, this is a man that has been known to be on various things about how theatrics is doing, and then the person said, okay, that's another theatrics that's going to happen. But the thing is, if the judicial system is being threatened and strengthened and seen as something that can be trusted, then whatever that's been done will not be a problem. But we all know the case of it's going to go long and long and long, and that process it's expensive because it means you're going to pay a lot, and the persons who can't will not be able to have a leadway.
But do you think these individuals as well understand how the law plays out? They have very strong legal teams as well to counter almost every single allegation, and to have certain evidences is really a slim chance to get. So do you think they understand the law and they are playing by the law, so you can't necessarily catch them by the law?
I mean, absolutely. A state will only be as strong as its institutions. If we have a judicial system that doesn't
Because you made mention of the judiciary and the lawyers who are these individuals' legal team still form part of the judiciary as well.
Absolutely. So, for example, EFCC, I mean, how much investment is made in improving the capacity and competence of the prosecutors and the EFCC? These are all the things that will add up, because a lot of these cases were instituted, if not all, were instituted by the EFCC. So if we don't have the competence in EFCC to really bring up arguments that can move these cases forward, then look, we'll be on these cases forever. I mean, 12 years, that's a long time. I mean, it is. I know legal cases can be very extended, but 12 years for a case of corruption like this, I think is rather long.
The question started by, these people coming into offices to serve. I remember in 2018, the presidential candidate for the SDP, Mr. Donald Duke, has said that the National Assembly and Nigeria as a whole will not change. We will not get any form of development if we keep letting the Senate especially become some retirement home of sorts for these governors. And I'm wondering, who are the people who voted these governors back into these places? Because it seems like an escape route of sorts. Although these people don't have any immunity in the case where they have something pending. But if we are looking for development of sorts, which we are obviously, why are we still letting them use that as some form of a retirement home, to borrow the words of Donald Duke?
I mean, again, this is where active citizenship is important. We saw the case with Bukola Saraki. I mean, huge war chest, as far as we know, in terms of political capital. We saw the case of Akpabio. These are institutions politically. But it looks like the people came out and said, no, we've had enough. Let's try someone else. So, yeah, we need systems, right? We need the legal systems, we need the legal institutions, but I think we also need active citizens who, and again, I'm not, this is not an attempt to judge whether they deserve to be there. I mean, that will be difficult to say, but the point is, if citizens know that you have people who were governors now coming to be senators or trying to be senators, and they have these cases against them, I think it is only fair to really think and ask yourself, does this person really deserve it? I mean, is this the best we can get? And I know it's also difficult because, again, if the party throws up the person as a candidate and the party has a very strong footing in that area, it might be difficult to have someone else. But I think active citizenship is really, really, we need to ask questions.
Well, I mean, the elections haven't even gone cold already. I mean, the presidential election was just over the weekend, and we're talking about active citizenship. How active were we when we went to the polls? Because, you see, we also have a way, or a role to play, which is by, putting out our votes there and deciding. But I didn't really see that, bearing in mind that most places, the number of people who were registered versus the number of people who were accredited to vote had a huge gap. So this active citizenship, how do we even get it? Are we ready at all in any way?
I think the first thing would be to educate people on what...
That's been going on.
Not just that. I mean, educating people that may not have gone to the halls of a school to know what election really is. During the time I voted this Saturday, I found out that there were so many things that were not even communicated to even the INEC officials that were the coppers, because the basic education was even lacking. So we need to educate people on these things, like, okay, what do you do? There was a rumor that you have to use 5 fingers on just one. All these basic things, we need to educate people on that. when people get to be educated in this, and then they get to know and be interested in these things, then they begin to understand how to move it forward.
The truth is, the people that we call educated, the people who are educated on these things that you're talking about, hardly come out to vote. The people who show up en masses, even the people we saw celebrating on the streets, those are the people who are more interested, who show interest, who even get more information. So we had a guest yesterday who was saying the average person in the north part of the country has a transistor radio. He's listening, he's getting information. How many of us, we feel like we're more educated, we're more enlightened, but we don't show up to express, you know, so really,
okay,
what are we
I
talking
meant
about
by
here?
the education here is, okay, in the north, how these grassroots politicians go about it is that they go from door to door. And then they go from door to door and tell them, okay, there's going to be an election, these are the things that are going to happen, make sure you come to the center square to meet this kind of persons, we're going to talk. It's like a family gathering. That doesn't happen in this part of the South. It's more or less like just social media. And social media, it's social media, it's social. Right?
But even in the South, you still see the large turnout are majorly illiterates, people who you would say are the lower income individuals. Those are the active participants in our democracy. But quickly now, so let's also look at how juicy these offices are for them to now make it a retirement home. What exactly should we be doing in terms of winning these state or federal actors so that it doesn't become some place of retirement? Instead, it should be a place of service. We have wardrobe allowances that are running into millions. We have other funds that are meant to cater for their needs to serve us, and their salaries are humongous. Where do we now start defining?
Hardship allowance, the most interesting one. Hardship allowance.
Where do we now start winning all of these now, as the 9th Assembly is already formed?
The truth is, I mean, I'm hopeful, but I don't think that will change.
Why?
I mean, why should it? It's pretty much the same set of people. It's the same. I mean, how many non-establishment people made it? And what voice would they have in the 9th Assembly? The truth is, people, look, progress is a slow process, but at some point, people need to actually ask themselves, what do we need to do? Any person who had a PVC and did not vote loses any right whatsoever to criticize any government. Because really, those are the people who are the problem in this country. You know, you have a right to exercise or to you know, make change happen, and you don't exercise it. I think that is, people like that should, sorry to say, bury their heads in shame. Because those are the problems.
But now, when they come into office and Nigerians thought they voted the right person into the National Assembly, when do we now start calling for checks in their salaries and how they operate and a whole lot more, and ensure that they are active participants in their constituencies? Because it's a place of service, redirecting the conversation.
One very important tool to exercise that is the process of recall. Now, do we have the aggregation of interest and energies to say, look, let's even start with one example. Let us recall a senator who is, I mean, there are lots of senators there who, in the space of 4 years.
For a fifth time, we have the Deputy Senate President, Ikwere Madu.
Which is okay. I mean, look, if his people voted for him and they think,
he's done a great
in
job.
the US, you have people who have done 6-7 terms.
Yeah.
That, in principle, that's not the problem. The question is, what has that gentleman done in the 5 terms that the people can say, look, these are the bills and these are the policies he chased, and this is the value that we need to, look, politics is not a thoughtless process. We need to actually start asking questions. We need to start thinking. There was a day I actually said to myself, look, I regularly watch the National Assembly live, and I couldn't remember any time I heard my senator speak.
But you see, the thing is, just as you just said, you watch. A lot of Nigerians in your shoes or in your category hardly watch, you know,
Those are the problems
those shows.
They are the problems.
The only time we see issues concerning our senators catch fire is one that makes the news. And then we all now start talking about it. Either it's the monies or it's the drama by Dino Malai or the dancing senator. It has to be something. But we never actively say, oh, let's say Isialangwa, something is happening in Isialangwa. What is my National Assembly member saying on
Absolutely.
it? Let's watch him. Has he passed any bills? Have you gone to his website? Do you even know anything? And because the truth is, we're not so interested. The constituency offices are always shut down. Some of them are never open, and nobody asks questions.
Let me shock you. There's something called, sorry, 1 second. There's something called constituency allowance.
Yes.
Right. Now, that's an instrument that is channeled through the executive to fund projects in constituencies. But do you know what? A lot of senators and House of Reps, the first thing you need to understand is very few of them, if any at all, implement. So, I mean, they come and say, oh, we're doing empowerment. And you know, empowerment is a very vague term. It can absolutely mean nothing. You know, so you hear those huge millions. I mean, I know some senators in the last 2 years have gotten as much as 3 billion naira. I have that information. But if you go to their communities, you will not see those empowerment programs. And some of them even fund projects from that fund and make it look like it's their personal donations. Those, you know, those are the things we need to start dealing with. So if your senator or your House of Reps member brings a borehole or a school, you need to ask him, is this your personal project or is this what is duly ours because of the provision for constituency development? We need active engagement.
Emmanuel, how quickly do you think that the National Assembly this time around will be able to effect changes? Because we've learned from, we're expected to take cues from the 8th Assembly and ensure that we have a better functioning body as the 9th Assembly is being formed. What level of changes do you anticipate, especially when the flag has been raised on these returning senators who have pending issues and coming into office?
For me, I'm not so hopeful, but I think what can be done is people need to come together and ensure that we really want this change. I see it as the youth still don't want this change. Most people are not even interested in the 9th Assembly or anything. They're just not interested. So anything that the persons in the House of Rep or the Senate would do, whether it's good or bad, some people are not really interested. So until that is done, then we really not have that change.
Another school of thought would also say that, well, the composition of the National Assembly has to be individuals who understand the law. Yes, these individuals understand the law, or they are close to people who understand the law, but lawmakers have to be lawyers, don't you think?
Not necessarily. I mean, a lot of them have legal experts in their staff. You know, look, at the end of the day, the law is, it can be a technical tool, but it's also a tool for just exercising humanity.
Do you think the average Nigerian politician in Nigeria understands the law, how to make laws and how to ensure that it is something that serves the people?
Well, I mean, if you don't understand it, why would you go there? That's the first question. And the second question is that
we've seen so many members of the House of the National Assembly.
I mean, so that's, you know, so we can ask for the best elections we like or we want, but the truth is the people who go out, look, we're all Nigerians. Why would you go into the Senate or why would you go to the House of Reps if you have no clue? You're going to waste the lives of many people. That's the way you should see it. You know, so for example, I mean, education. Look at our education policies. It is Jurassic. I mean, we have people who will be born in Nigeria in 20, 30 years' time. There is no way they'll be able to compete with their colleagues in China, in Japan, in the US, if we continue the way we are now. So we are literally just mortgaging the future.
Well,
of this
they all
country.
pass all those bills and the rest, but don't you think that a stronger understanding of what these bills represent, what the law is supposed to do in terms of development, if they had that strong understanding, then they would be able to push for all of these speedy passages. But we've seen so many running into hundreds, just stalling, literally.
Well, part of it is the political process. I mean, we know, for example, how in the last assembly, bills were used as collateral for negotiation, for, you know, throwing shades across between the executive and the legislature. Also, whether it was the executive doing it, or it was the president not signing, not assenting to something, or it was the National Assembly promising to either frustrate bills or frustrate appointments. I mean, look, even in the US, right, that is very advanced, we see a lot of this happening. I mean, it's happened, the government was shut down for what, 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Things like this happen. But at the end of the day, over there, people know that there are consequences. And the truth is, that government shutdown will have a lot of collateral damage at the next elections. Someone will suffer for it. But in Nigeria, do we have that consequence? Is there any such structure where when you go in and you're there to represent people? Now, first of all, how many times do these people even engage? How many constituency offices have weekly briefings?
Are even open? Because that's the question. Some of these people don't even know who's their senator.
At all.
Some don't even know who their House of Rep member is. Not talk less of where the constituency office is.
Exactly.
Or even because I know people who have written petitions upon petitions to a certain member of the National Assembly, and it gets tossed in the bin because there's no interface.
The democracy we have borrowed is built on certain fundamentals. Right, and one of the fundamentals is what it called representation. Without representation, democracy is pointless.
You see the sort of engagement that happens in Britain. Let's just take the Prime Minister of Britain now, Theresa May, and the engagement which has gone so far with the Brexit deal. You see how they come out, have interactions, how they have engagement, how they go head on at each other, just to ensure that they have something worthwhile, and they say this is the dividend of democracy we have. But we don't have such engagements here. Now we are seeing the Senate now, the composition. The APC is taking control over the Senate as well because they formed the majority this time around. But how do you think this would also play out, taking cues that we are supposed to be fighting for things, a developmental agenda now this time around? Do you think we would have some level of epiphany, being majority or not? Do you think we should have or expect some level of epiphany and then have things working for Nigeria?
I think
at least the Buhari-led government has said, well, they will consolidate on all of the platforms laid this time around. So it's change we're supposed to see.
I think whether the APC-led government has more or less should not be the issue. I think that the focus has to be in implementing what they said that they will implement in various places. And still talking about why these things are happening is because, first and foremost, when persons are going to be educated on how these things run, they need to also be interested in it. And we are not having that for now. But
how do we build that interest? Because there are a lot of young people who say, I beg, let me just go to work and come home, get my salary. I'm not interested in politics. Is it because we made it seem like it's politics instead of governance? Have we misplaced these two?
I think the average Nigerian would want to agree that politics is a dirty game. And none of the average Nigerian want to go into it. And with the things that have been happening over time as regards politics and election. But I think if we can differentiate between the politics of itself and governance, of how governance is not just about some persons, it's about everyone because it affects each one. If I'm in the social sector and I'm representing an NGO and I'm saying I don't need the government, that's not true.
Well, before we round up conversations, we would like to take a look at Governor Wike and the allegations laid against him, as well as a response from the army. We have a quick video here and then we'll talk in details about that.
Within 10 minutes of that, Governor Wike placed a call to the officer. Please, can you play that recorded conversation between Governor Wike and the officer?
Hello, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning. Yeah, this is Governor Wike.
Good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to you before. I heard you were angry.
Hello, sir.
I wanted to speak to you before, but you were angry.
No, sir, I'm not angry. Who am I to be angry with the governor, sir? Sorry, sir.
Yeah, you work.
Fine, sir. Very well, sir.
Why is it going there?
Sir, very well, sir.
Okay, even though I've not finished you, how do I reach you?
Sir?
How do we reach you?
Sir, I'm here on the checkpoint, sir.
Okay. I will tell that person to go back to you. I'll tell you what to do.
Preliminary investigations discovered the sum of 2,250,000 naira in a Range Rover belonging to the DSP. Other items recovered are 4 INEC 2019 electoral tags, customized River State Government House brown envelopes, while the sum of 500,000 naira was also found in the Toyota vehicle belonging to Major AP Uba, which he confessed was given to him by the governor's aides, in addition to offer of a well-furnished accommodation for the period of his tour of duty. Gentlemen, 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 gentlemen.
I heard about what the public relation of the Nigerian Army, the C Division, said, which is very, very unfortunate. We show lack of respect for constituted authority. What I may see, what he did today in a democracy, he called that a coup to overthrow a constituted government. That is what played out today. But let's take it, according to the allegations. He said that I spoke to an army officer. I hope you listen to the so-called tape. I have every right. So many people have been arrested that day. And I've already before now made allegations that they intend to arrest PDP leaders. On that particular day, Dr. Nonya called me and said, look, we have been arrested while we're escorting, as agents of the party, escorting the materials to go to Odioku community, their own unit. And they were confronted, and they told them that they were agents of the party. They said no, they were not going to leave them. And it's okay, if you're not going to leave us, they will not also allow the materials to move. I said, why is this? And he told me, I said, okay, can I speak to the officer why he should arrest you? He said, the officer said they were not going to speak to me. I said, okay, you relax, don't bother. Later, he sent me a text that the officer said he's sorry that I can now call him. I said, what is the problem? He said, oh, they were at the junction and they confronted these people. I said, but, so what is the position now? He said, no, don't problem. I said, okay. They let the man see you back and resolve the problem. Let anybody say where I said that you should do something that is not due.
Well, we're back, gentlemen. We had to play that audio. I remember this was happening on the same day. We were watching INEC at the Collation Center to get, information. They were also live on TV, and people were wondering, why is the army live? Right. But I'll start with you. You're from the Niger Delta, so I'm sure you might be aware of some of the drama that happens down there. What do you think about this?
Well, it's a clear case of two fighting. Look, in the scheme of things, this is not the biggest issue in Nigeria today. I mean, look, there are 12 million children out of school in this country today. There's no way this situation will solve that problem. I mean, there's a tribunal. Let them take the evidence and let everybody go there and get sorted. I think this is a national distraction. Right? I think, look, most of in fact, the PDP candidate has said it's going to the tribunal. This is probably a flashpoint in all of the things that happened. Let the tribunal deal with it. The truth is, how are we supposed to know? No, I mean, nobody really knows.
Well, Governor Wike has said he insists that he did not try to induce the army official and has already written to the International Criminal Court as well to seek redress and prosecute the GOC 6th Division for crimes against humanity. And he says, well, you cannot also parade a state
but just to be clear, I think also, look, elections it's not a civil war. An election is a civil process. And as much as possible, let us be careful how we use the army during elections. Because they can very easily become a tool. Do you understand?
No, we don't. How do you mean?
So, I mean, the question is, the army is to defend territorial integrity of the country. I don't know if we had invaders in River State. And this is not me trying to take a side, but I'm just saying some of these issues, let the police deal with them. Because I think the police are better trained for things like this.
Okay, quickly, let's take your thoughts before we wrap things up.
Especially taking in cognizance that the army also said, well, they found some sums of money.
Yeah.
I would have loved if the army responded this fast as they responded to this case, as they should have responded to several cases. I think the main thing here is that this is a national distraction. And why it's a national distraction is because in the first place, based on the law, elections are supposed to be run by the police. So bringing the military into it is actually not supposed to be so.
Whether the military or the police, if there is some level of inducement of officers on duty just to have the way of the party who is interested in the matter, it is still a wrongdoing.
Inducement, yes, it's a wrongdoing, whether police or the army. But if we're going to get it right, we need to get it right from this very point. So if tomorrow the army decides, okay, want to do something and then do that, the essence of democracy is that there is a due process. That's the first thing. So if we're going to get it right there, then we can go further. Okay. And there were so many discrepancies. I listened to the audio so many times, and it looks like what somebody may have altered.
Well, hopefully further investigation will be done into that and we uncover whatever mystery is there. Some would say it was a doctored piece, others say, well, you heard what the governor said. Many thanks for speaking with us. Obinna Igwebike, a management consultant. It's been a pleasure having you throw more light into some of these issues. And Emmanuel Agunze was also here with us, the founder of Makoko Dream. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.